I think a guy, you had raised your hand, guy with the beard. You had said, I think you raised your hand, you wanted to say something? Yeah, for sure. Round of applause, by the way. It's not easy to come out. What's your name again? Jacob?
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing about gamergate is this. You know, when...
Yeah,
I'm sure, I can't help it. I was gonna say, the thing about gamergate really like parts of bullshit for a couple reasons. Is look, feminism gaming is a good thing. It's been known fact that in terms of the Silicon Valley and the information, industry or technology, whatever I'll call the industry itself, there is a low ratio of females. This is a well-known fact, not just in game development, but also in development technology. But the thing about the argument about Gamergate, the ethics of journalism is bullshit for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest ones a few years ago, before Gamergate started, there was a big scandal even in the UK over the same issue. Had nothing to do with feminism. Literally, journalists were being paid, game journalists were being paid by game companies to give good reviews. Maybe else remember the machinima controversy like about a year ago? Yeah, I mean, it's a great example of this. I mean, think of it this way. The way gaming media is set up is not just some traditional media. You have your traditional outlets like IGN, GameSpot. They're like your New York Times, your CNN, your Fox News, MSNBC, whatever. And you have your other ones like Kotaku, who's not quite in mainstream, but it's under it, then Destructoid, and so on and so forth. So it's distributed the same exact way. So the argument that's about journalistic integrity is bullshit. I mean, journalistic integrity is a problem we've always had. Look at like Grace Rockefeller, that. Yellow journalism in the Spanish-American War in 1898. That maybe started because William Randolph Hearst wanted to sell newspapers, and one of his men maybe actually blew up the Maine. I mean, just think about that for a second. I mean, there's history behind this. That's what I'm trying to say. So, the other thing was, it was just this weird, I always describe it, I hate to be stereotypical, I'm sorry, but gaming to me just seemed like a bunch of basement dwellers who wanted to attack women because they were just socially inept. I hate to say it, but it was vile, it was disgusting, and it just produced nothing. And unfortunately, it didn't progress. It didn't even really promote feminism in gaming either. It just sort of stagnated. It was just horrible. And nobody won that. That really was one of the many problems with it. That's what I wanted to say about it. That's all.
And he's right. I mean, corruption in gaming journalism is a huge fucking problem. Like, that happens all the time. Like, getting paid for good grades, yeah, that happens a lot. It's proven, but that's kind of what makes Gamergate that much more sad, is because the fact that it was more of an attack on, women and female developers kind of masked the fact that there really is a problem in the video game industry. Drew, do you want to talk? You know a little bit more about this. Do you care to talk? You don't have to. I'm just asking.
My only opinion that I would add to what this dude said is, like, I mean, the thing I hate about Gamergate is that if you actually want to talk about all of these real problems with journalistic ethics in games now, fucking people are going to think you're a joke for like at least the next 5 years.
And that's the problem, right? Because you just think you're a Gamergate guy. And again, there may be plenty of problems with female developers, probably not. But there may be very specific female developers that are having problems. There could be a female in the industry who is doing something corrupt, but because of how this kind of exploded, none of that, can actually be kind of treated fairly. And there is sexism in video games. Like, we can all agree on that. Like, what Jacob said. Like that. Yeah. Like, it's very hard for me to argue that it's very hard for me to believe that when somebody says, like, oh, sexism isn't that bad in video games. Like, have you gone into a GameStop? Like, did you see the photos of E3? Like, clearly, there's huge, like, fucking, every time you see a poster of a game, it's this huge fucking naked woman, or barely clothed. They're naked, let's just be fair. Or like, just every time you go to a website, if you see an ad for an MMO, it's always gonna be some hot chick. You actually get confused when it's not. Like, is it a really bad MMO? Is that why there's no hot chick on the banner? What?
Ebony's old ads?
Ebony. There's so many of them.
And now that shitty game of war game with, Chaotin, same thing.
Yeah. It's, and also it's that, yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah. It's my friend Doug. All my friends are coming up, I appreciate it. That's a cool guy.
So yeah, sexism in gaming, right? I was born in '88. Who was here born in the late '80s? Raise your hand. Alright, so remember when video games were starting to get violent, like Doom?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and then Columbine happened, that was the first real, like, school shooting incident that America had, and then the media started blaming things like Marilyn Manson, video games, right?
Yeah.
Video games cause violence. Video games turn you into a psychotic person with narcissistic personality disorder with a vengeance to kill, right? We all essentially grew up to believe and understand that was bullshit, am I correct?
Yes.
Right? So, what's interesting about the subject of Gamergate and what I believe to be the biggest roadblock in understanding what Gamergate is as an idea is the false dichotomy between the concept of video games equal violence. Video games cause violence, and then video games cause sexism, or video games create sexism. For example, when you speak of Anita Sarkeesian, she brings up a lot of really excellent points in her videos, right? She doesn't necessarily bring up very excellent points in her tweets. Tweets is a stream of consciousness platform. We all
That's
use
true. I've
Twitter.
read some. Yeah,
It's almost like a journal in a way, you know what I mean? You get to spit a thought out of your brain.
And we gotta stop freaking each other out over tweets, guys. I mean, come on.
So, for example, you mentioned
Yeah.
E3, right? Who here watches the E3 streams regularly? Who here watched E3 2014? That was a pretty sexist E3, right? Who here watched E3 2015? Wasn't E3 2015 an improvement? Wasn't there an increase of females both on stage and in major titles and in new intellectual properties? So, for example, feminism has done good things for gaming, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that every single criticism of sexism is valid. For example, Anita Sarkeesian made a tweet about the E3 badge, which featured Rise from Persona 4, the Dancing All Night. Who knows what her outfit looks like? It's a typical schoolgirl outfit, right? Is it over-sexualized? No.
It was regular outfit, and she just said because there's a female cover and she thought all males were
The most etchy thing, if you guys know what etchy means, was the fact that she was wearing thigh highs with the miniskirt, and she showed a little bit of midriff. That's fairly conservative considering we're looking at anime, which is nowadays, I think, solely responsible for the reason why Japan isn't breeding anymore. Isn't that something we should be talking about tonight? Fazio versus anime? That's all I want
We
to
talked
say.
about that in Tough Crowd. You should have been at that
versus
panel.
the world.
I was self-Spanish. Yeah, you'll be back. That's fine. Yeah, don't worry. We trust you.
But I think that's my point with, not everything Anita Sarkeesian says is platinum, because she's a human being just like all of us. We all make mistakes. People like to do things which is like, if you're saying something which is morally palpable, something that tastes good, you're going to get a lot of people that are going to support you back. But if you're going to say something that's against the grain, if you're going to do something that stands out, if you're going to have an opinion that's contrary to the majority of opinion, people are very easily going to just write you off or call you a label or something, rather than take the time to understand what you're trying to say. And that's why communication is so important.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
That's all.